back to the shop. It's time for yet again another very long overdue update on the Beetle project. So if I pulled you into this video because of the thumbnail to start, you may be asking yourself, did he really sell that turbo system he built? Well, the answer is yeah, I did. Kind of a long story. Short version is, I had a different project in my head that I was interested in pursuing. Really could only have time and money to do one at a time. Thought I'd mothball this, jump on the other project. So I sold everything that I built for the turbo engine. I ultimately ran into some technical challenges with a new project that I wasn't going to be able to overcome. So here we are back again, kind of starting back over a little bit. So you may be asking yourself, well, that's silly, why did you do that? Well, to be honest, my goals for this car have also shifted a little bit. And so as I finished the other system, which was about a year ago, I was sort of thinking of changes that I'd like to make to it. So really, I don't feel like all is lost. I see an opportunity now to kind of reconfigure the system and build it for something that matches better what I'm intending to do with the car now. So let's catch you up on what's happened since the last time you saw this, the changes that are being made, and kind of where we're going now. So what sort of changes am I making now? Well, the first change is the ECU that I plan to use. If you remember back from the beginning of this series, I plan to use the MS33X, which is the DIY version of Megasquirt 3. And I actually bought and built the entire ECU before I decided to change course. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. One is the DIY version, although good, is not necessarily as good as a purpose-built IP-rated enclosure that some of the other ECUs offer. And two, there's some limitations for inputs and outputs. So as I really started to plan out what I wanted to do with this car and some of the features that I wanted the ECU to control, I found out that basically I was going to tap out what the MS33X had to offer. So I started looking at what my options were. Certainly, you know, you've got the higher Megasquirt Pros, you've got Fuel Tech and a bunch of other ones, and essentially what I've settled on is to sort of stay the course with what I know and go with Megasquirt. So this is the Megasquirt 3 Pro Ultimate Edition. This is the most fully featured Megasquirt that's currently available on the market. It's sort of the biggest, baddest, has the most inputs and outputs of all the systems. So I was very fortunate to find this locally on Facebook Marketplace. It was a new in-box deal, got it for a great price, and really was sort of the right move now before I wire the car to go ahead and make the change. So what sort of inputs and outputs am I really after for this? Well, there's a few and probably a growing list that will come in the future. But right out of the gate, there's some pressure transducers that I want to use for like fuel pressure, oil pressure, maybe look at the pre-turbo pressure so I can look at the manifold, exhaust manifold, the intake manifold pressure ratio. There's thermocouples that I want to be looking at. Of course, we've got the normal ones for intake air temperature, but I also want to look at oil temperature real time. I want to be able to have a lot of protections for the engine built into this. Various other things like being able to control the idle air control valve for the engine, which is a sort of a clue where we're going. And then longer term, I want to put wheel speed sensors on the car. So if I put a front and rear wheel speed sensor, I can use this to do traction control, which at the power level that I think we'll be at with this car will be very important. And it'll also allow me to do boost by gear calculation, which will allow me to control the power depending on what gear I'm in, which I think will be very good as far as making this car controllable and really successful. So very excited about this ECU. Again, something I'm familiar with. I know Megasquirt. Very open source, a good user community out there. And so I think this is really going to be a pretty nice piece that puts us in the right direction. So getting into the changes of the turbo system itself, the biggest change that I'm making is I'm going back to a single throttle body. Now I've built single throttle body setups before. I know what their pitfalls can be, but also that means that I know how to build around those or work around those with the combo now. So this is a 60mm throttle body, nominally 60-62. This is from like a Jeep 4-liter Cherokee. This is just something that I found going to the local pick and pull and really trying to figure out something that worked for my needs. Of course, the primary things is the size that I was after, and I wanted something with a built-in idle air control valve. This car still is primarily a street car for me. I want something that has good manners. I want something that operates or can be tuned like a new car. And an idle air control valve is a big piece of that. But what also pushed me to the single throttle body is simplicity in the engine bay. So this car is primarily a street car, and it will always be that. But I have watched a lot of drag and drive type events for a lot of years, and really think that's sort of a neat concept. and more you're starting to see some really powerful VWs going out and competing and doing very well at those events. So it really got me thinking about what I want to do with this car, and I thought, why not? Maybe it's not going to necessarily be purpose-built for drag and drive type events, but I certainly want to put it together in a manner that it is capable of doing that. And at the power level that I want the car at for sort of the targets for the performance, I'm going to need to intercool the car, and going back to a single throttle body will make that a lot easier. So I'm not settled on whether I'm going to do air to air or air to water yet, but this throttle body and the intake arrangement that I'm planning will allow me to do either, and it makes the engine bay a lot less cluttered and complicated in a sense compared to individual throttle bodies. The turbo itself is from AGP Turbo. This is the CW5157 turbo. Not a big change from the turbo that I had before. Actually, the inducer of this is just slightly smaller than what I had before, but overall this turbo is rated at about 450 horsepower, which is well past where I really intend to put the car. But this compressor, it's stage 3 turbine on the hot side and a 4.8 AR housing. Should really give me a good street manners, and I think be capable of kind of hitting what I want. A quick shout out to Tyler at AGP. I looked at this one, the 5157 and the 5257, which are very similar. Called up AGP, got Tyler on the phone, walked him through what I was doing. Super helpful. He suggested going for this 5157 for a variety of reasons. So I placed an order, they got it boxed up that same day, got it in the mail, and super quick shipping. So, you know, you can't hardly beat good support like that. This day and age, it's nice to have companies that are easy to pick up the phone and talk to somebody that's willing to help out. Certainly recommend AGP at this point for any of you guys that are looking for turbos for your Volkswagen. All right, so I think we've done enough yakking for now, so let's go ahead and get to working on fabricating the center section or the T section of the intake manifold. I'm still waiting on some more intake manifold pieces. I'm waiting for the new turbo header to come in the mail. So there's some limits to how much that I can get fabricated, but at least for now we can start laying out the center section, kind of get the throttle body placed where we want it. So let's go ahead and jump into that fabrication. Nothing to do but to do it, so let's get rolling. Alright, so that's a pretty quick mock-up here of the intake tee that we're planning to build. So this is essentially a real similar to some setups that I've built in the past, which I'll post a picture up here. This is 2-inch stainless tubing that'll run left to right, and this is 2.5 inch going into it. So I just coped out the 2.5 inch piece on the drill press with the hole saw. It'll take a little bit of fitting down here to get this all tigged up, but essentially have the 90 coming up that I cut back to get the angle I needed, and this puts the throttle body kind of in close and tight against the shroud and against the alternator. And so what this allows me is a couple of options for intercooling. So the turbocharger compressor housing will be about here, and so I have an option of doing an air-to-water intercooler in this area here, where it would go from the turbo to the cooler and have a pipe that comes over. And I'm also considering potentially laying out an air-to-air intercooler sort of up here at the top, which with the deck lid standoffs will pull air through it. And in that case, I'll be able to come off of that intercooler in this way to the throttle body, and then come out of the turbo charge pipe and up this side of the car to the intercooler. So I've got some options in front of me, but ultimately this should work out pretty well, I think. Be able to put a bracket here for the throttle cable to pull on, and I think this will really kind of serve me well for what I'm after. So I'm kind of at a stopping point until I get a few more parts in hand. I'm going to start eventually working on the contouring of that and finishing up the fitting here and going ahead and welding that up. But pretty soon here I should be able to get my end pieces in for the intake manifold, get the turbo hung, settle on what I'm going to do for the intercooling, and then we can go ahead and kind of knock this all out. Anyway, that's all I got for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you are still interested to see where this goes as much as I am. Anyway, if you like what you see, go ahead and give me a like, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hopefully we'll start making some real steady progress on this thing and get this thing back on the road, targeting sometime this summer. We'll see what we can do. Got a lot of work to get there, but sort of on, got a plan, got some motivation going, so I think we'll be in pretty good shape. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.